After building a life together for decades, after sharing countless memories and weathering life's storms side by side, how do you know if the man you trust is hiding another woman? I'm Vernon, and today I'm going to share 3 crucial indicators that may reveal if he's hiding another woman. Not to create paranoia, but to protect your heart and help you make informed decisions about your future. Men over 60 who betray their partners often use their maturity and understanding of psychology to conceal their deception more skillfully than younger men. What you're about to hear may be hard, but it could save you from years of living a lie. As a man myself, I know for certain that this kind of information is something men would never want women to know. However, having witnessed the heartache and suffering of the women around me over the years, I can't stay silent. It's time for women to be informed, to protect themselves from the pain they don't have to endure. First off, a huge thank you to everyone who has been with me on this journey and continuously supports the channel. Your comments, likes, and shares mean the world to me. Now, for those who are new or haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. Stay tuned for more insights, tips, and discussions that can help you navigate relationships with clarity and confidence. Let's dive into the first indicator that could reveal whether he's hiding another woman and how to recognize the subtle signs that might have been overlooked. Sign number 1. The digital fortress. Technology becomes his shield. There's something particularly revealing about how a man handles technology when he's hiding something significant. I think of my cousin, Bethy, who at 64 began noticing that her husband of 38 years, Robert, had suddenly become very protective of his phone. This was the same man who used to leave his phone lying around carelessly, who would ask her to answer it when his hands were full, who shared passwords without a second thought. The shift was subtle at first. Robert started taking his phone with him to the bathroom, something he'd never done before. He began angling the screen away from her when texting, claiming he was protecting her eyes from the glare. When she asked about his sudden interest in privacy, he dismissed her concerns with explanations about work confidentiality and learning about digital security. This transformation reveals something the ancient Stoics understood well. When we're hiding something, we create barriers. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." But when deception enters a relationship, simplicity disappears, replaced by complexity and elaborate defenses. What makes this particularly insidious after 60 is that many men at this age are genuinely embracing new technology, which allows them to easily mask suspicious behavior as part of a normal learning process. For example, they might suddenly show an increased interest in social media, claiming it's just for networking for their retirement hobbies. Alternatively, they might insist on needing privacy to surprise you with gifts, which sounds innocent, but could be a cover for hiding something more than just a thoughtful gesture. These seemingly harmless explanations can create confusion, making it harder to spot red flags in their actions. Pew Research Center shows that adults over 60 are the fastest growing demographic on social media platforms, which makes it easier for unfaithful partners to blend suspicious activity with legitimate social engagement. However, the key difference lies in the emotional quality of the secrecy.
Pay attention to certain patterns, such as sudden changes in passwords for devices that were once accessible, new email accounts he's reluctant to talk about, or a surprising newfound expertise in apps or platforms he previously showed no interest in. Most revealing, however, are the defensive reactions he gives when you casually inquire about his digital activities. So, how can you handle this shift in behavior without jumping to conclusions? Here are a few approaches to consider. Have an open and honest conversation. Instead of letting your suspicions grow, calmly share your concerns with him. Ask about his new digital habits and focus on how it makes you feel. This keeps the conversation respectful, avoiding accusations, and opening space for him to explain. Observe without confronting. Take note of patterns in his behavior over time. Watch for repeated moments where he becomes defensive or secretive about his devices. This can give you a clearer picture of whether there's more to the situation before you decide to confront him. Set clear boundaries about privacy. Respectful boundaries are key in any relationship. While privacy is important, you could suggest mutually agreed upon boundaries around digital privacy, like sharing passwords or discussing what kind of digital transparency you both feel comfortable with. This digital secrecy often leads to something even more telling, an emotional withdrawal that signals deeper changes in the relationship dynamic. Let's explore this further now.
Sign number 2, the emotional withdrawal when intimacy becomes distant. Emotional withdrawal is often one of the most telling signs that something is wrong in a relationship. It's a shift that can happen gradually, making it hard to pinpoint when exactly the connection began to fade. But when intimacy begins to feel distant, it's usually a signal that your partner is pulling away, not just physically, but emotionally. My friend Margaret shared with me how her husband of 42 years, Thomas, began what she called the slow fade. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was like watching a photograph slowly lose its color. Thomas stopped asking about her day with genuine interest. Their evening conversations, once rich with shared thoughts and future plans, became surface-level exchanges about practical matters. The man who used to hold her hand while watching television now sat in his own chair, absorbed in his phone. Most tellingly, he stopped sharing his own thoughts and feelings, becoming what Margaret described as present but absent. This emotional withdrawal reflects what the philosopher Martin Buber called the difference between I-thou and I-it relationships. When someone is investing emotional energy elsewhere, they unconsciously begin treating their long-term partner as an object to be managed rather than a person to be loved. The warmth, curiosity, and genuine care that characterize healthy relationships gradually disappear. What makes this particularly devastating after 60 is that emotional intimacy is often the cornerstone of mature relationships. Physical passion may have evolved, but emotional connection typically deepens with age. When that connection starts to erode, it's not just disappointing, it's often a sign that emotional energy is being redirected elsewhere. This emotional withdrawal doesn't always happen because of another person, but more often it's a sign that the partner's emotional needs are no longer being met, or they're retreating due to other unresolved issues. It can stem from a lack of communication, unresolved conflict, or feelings of neglect that have built up over time.
It's also a defense mechanism to avoid confronting difficult emotions, especially if there's an underlying fear of vulnerability or rejection. When emotional withdrawal occurs, it's important to ask yourself how the dynamic has shifted. Are you still able to talk openly and connect on a deeper level? Or have you both settled into a routine that no longer fosters emotional closeness? Recent studies from the Journal of Marriage and Family show that emotional infidelity often precedes physical infidelity, particularly in longer-term relationships. The pattern typically involves a gradual decrease in emotional availability at home, coupled with increased emotional investment in someone else. Be mindful of certain subtle yet telling changes. Conversations that shift from natural exchanges to feeling more like interrogations. A noticeable decrease in physical affection that cannot be attributed to health concerns. A growing disinterest in shared activities that once brought you both joy. And an overarching sense that, despite the familiar appearance, you are living alongside someone who feels like a stranger. The emotional withdrawal also manifests in what I call protective detachment. He might become less interested in your problems, less celebratory of your successes, and less invested in your shared future. This isn't necessarily conscious cruelty. It's often an unconscious way of creating emotional distance that makes the deception feel less like betrayal. If you're experiencing emotional withdrawal in your relationship, it's essential to address the issue directly rather than letting it fester. Open and honest communication is key to understanding the root of the problem. Start by asking specific questions about the changes you've noticed in the dynamic between you both, such as, "I've felt a distance between us recently. Can we talk about what's been going on?" Approach the conversation with curiosity and a willingness to listen without making immediate judgments. A genuine response would involve him acknowledging your feelings and expressing a desire to understand your perspective. However, if his response feels defensive, dismissive, or evasive, it may indicate a deeper issue that he's not ready to confront or share. In such cases, it's important to express your own feelings without blaming or accusing, focusing on how the emotional distance affects you personally. Have you noticed any signs of emotional withdrawal in your relationship? How have you addressed it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Drop a comment below, and let's discuss how open communication can help rebuild emotional connection. This emotional distance often coincides with the next sign we'll explore: unexpected changes in routines that have been stable for years.
Sign 3. The schedule shuffle. Unexplained changes in routine. As we've seen with digital secrecy and emotional withdrawal, deception creates a need for new structures and systems. One of the most revealing of these is the sudden appearance of unexplained changes in long-established routines. I remember when my Aunt Helen began noticing that her husband David's predictable schedule suddenly became full of variables. David had been retired for 3 years, and his routine had been comfortably predictable. Morning coffee and newspaper, afternoon golf twice a week, evening news together, and weekend projects around the house. But gradually, Helen noticed new patterns emerging. He started having volunteer commitments that required him to be away for several hours without clear explanations about what he was doing. His golf schedule became erratic, with some sessions lasting much longer than usual and others being mysteriously canceled.
Most telling was his reaction when Helen showed casual interest in these new activities. The man who used to share every detail of his golf games suddenly became vague about who he played with and what they discussed. His volunteer work, which he claimed was helping at the community center, remained frustratingly unspecific whenever she asked about it. This pattern reflects what behavioral psychologists call compartmentalization, the need to create separate spaces and times for different aspects of life when those aspects can't coexist openly. The ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius taught that the man of wisdom is never of two minds. But deception requires exactly that, managing multiple realities simultaneously. What makes this particularly significant after 60 is that older adults typically value routine and predictability. When someone who is settled into comfortable patterns suddenly becomes erratic and secretive about their time, it's often because they're trying to accommodate something or someone new in their life. So keep an eye out for these key signs. Unfamiliar regular commitments that he's vague about, unexplained changes in established routines, more time spent away from home without clear reasons, and most notably, defensive or irritated reactions when you ask simple questions about his activities. After 60, when we often value routine and predictability, these sudden changes can indicate that someone is trying to make room for something or someone else in their life. So, how can you address this unsettling shift without jumping to conclusions? Have a direct yet non-confrontational conversation. Instead of letting your concerns fester, bring up the changes in his routine in a calm, non-accusatory way. Use phrases like, "I've noticed your schedule has shifted recently, and I'm curious about what's been going on." This opens up the conversation without pointing fingers. Observe and track the patterns. Before reacting, take time to observe the new patterns. Track when he's gone, how long he's away, and what activities he's involved in. This can provide clarity on whether there's a valid reason for his behavior or if it's a signal of something deeper. Set clear expectations for transparency. Express the need for mutual transparency in your relationship. Let him know that understanding each other's schedules and activities builds trust and security. Suggest that being open about these details isn't about invading privacy, but about maintaining a sense of shared understanding. A faithful partner will welcome your interest and provide clear, detailed answers. A deceptive partner will become evasive, defensive, or will provide explanations that don't quite add up when you think about them later. By addressing the changes directly, observing the patterns, and fostering transparency, you can navigate the uncertainty of these schedule shifts while ensuring the relationship stays grounded in trust and clear communication.
Conclusion. Before we reach the end of this difficult but necessary exploration, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to face these possibilities. The three signs we've discussed, digital secrecy, emotional withdrawal, schedule changes, are not just warning signals. They're tools for protecting your emotional well-being and making informed decisions about your future. Remember that knowledge is power, but wisdom lies in how you use that knowledge. These signs don't necessarily mean immediate action is required, but they do suggest that honest conversation and careful observation are warranted. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle taught that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. At this stage of life, you have the wisdom to trust your instincts, the experience to recognize patterns, and the strength to face difficult truths. You also have the right to expect honesty, respect, and fidelity from your partner, regardless of your age. If you're facing these signs, consider seeking support from a trusted friend, family member, or professional counselor. You don't have to navigate this alone, and you deserve relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. You are not responsible for another person's choices to deceive, but you are responsible for protecting your own emotional well-being and making decisions that honor your worth and dignity. Give this video a like, share it with someone who could benefit from it, and comment your thoughts below. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on important topics like this. Your emotional well-being matters, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. Thank you for joining me on this challenging but important journey.